It's my great pleasure to introduce this afternoon's featured speaker, Secretary of Commerce Gary Locke. Last year I had the opportunity to work on a detail at the U.S. Department of Commerce and learned one very encouraging thing about the Secretary, and that is he has an unwavering focus on what's best for business. And I know that's something that everyone in this room shares. Gary Locke was appointed by President Obama as the 36th Secretary of Commerce and sworn into office in March of last year. Prior to his appointment, he helped U.S. companies break into international markets as a partner in the Seattle office of the international law firm of Davis, Wright, and Tremaine. As the popular two-term governor of Washington, Gary Locke broke down trade barriers around the country, or around the world, on behalf of American business. He helped open doors for Washington state businesses by leading 10 productive trade missions to Asia, Mexico, and Europe. He also successfully strengthened economic ties between China and Washington state. His visits are credited with helping more than double the state's exports to China to over $5 billion per year. As part of his trade and economic development efforts, he launched Washington's Competitiveness Council with business, labor, and civic leaders working together to position Washington state for success at home and around the world. During the 8 years that he was governor, the state gained 280,000 jobs, pretty remarkable number. At the Commerce Department, Secretary Locke oversees 38,000 employees in 12 bureaus, including NIST and MEP, all of which focus on critical aspects of U.S. economic growth and jobs. The department's work touches the lives of Americans in many diverse ways, from weather forecasts to this year's census to patent and trademark protection for inventors in business. Please join me in welcoming the Secretary of Commerce, Gary Locke. There he is.
Well, thank you very much, Roger. Thanks very much for the introduction, but most importantly, thanks for the great work you're doing as our leader of the Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program. It's really great to be here in Orlando, and I want to thank all of you for traveling great distances to join us today and for the next several days as part of this conference. I have to confess that it was just a few weeks ago that our entire family was here in Orlando, my wife and our three little kids, 13, 11, and 5, and we had a wonderful visit. Incredible visit in part to the innovative manufactured products that we find here in Orlando, roller coasters. So for all of you in manufacturing, thanks for the great work that you do to contribute to our quality of life, and it was a great experience here. And as you can tell, when you have a daughter that's 13, a son 11, and a daughter that's 5, it ranges from all the animatronics and Wild Kingdom attractions to obviously Jasmine, Cinderella, Snow White, and all of those things. It's no secret that this has been a tough stretch for the American economy, and no one has been hit harder than our manufacturing sector. But within the last few months, we've started to see some promising signs of recovery. We've recently had the largest monthly jobs increase in 3 years. The gross domestic product, the total value of the output of American companies, has been positive for the last 3 quarters. When you factor in that a year ago, the net output of American companies, the value of goods and services, was actually declining at a rate of 6%. And of course, the latest figures, including today's figures, show that consumer spending is up, consumer confidence is up, industrial orders are up, so there are also a lot of positive signs. So it looks like we're finally turning the corner. But the reality is that too many people who want work can't find it. Too many people who are working can't get enough of it. And that's what keeps the president and his entire administration up at night. Because behind all of those unemployment figures, behind all of those statistics of people wanting work, there are families in distress. And people are justifiably frustrated that the economy is not turning around more quickly. But it's also important to be mindful of how far we've come. Even before the recession hit, something wasn't quite right in this American economy. Over the last decade, for the last 10 years, wages for middle-class families have been flat, while the cost of health care, tuition, and housing skyrocketed. The reality is that if you worked on Wall Street or day traded technology stocks or flipped houses, the last 10 years may have actually been pretty good. But if you got up every day trying to carve out a living in a factory, in a retail store, or at a restaurant, your life probably wasn't anything materially better than it was in the year 2000. We really should have known that something was wrong. But we ignored the warning signals. And by the time the president took office, the economy was in a free fall. We lost 700,000 jobs that month of January when he took office halfway through January. 600,000 the month before in the last month of President Bush's full month in office. 500,000 jobs the month before that. And banks were failing left and right. Everyone knows what followed. The administration and the Congress took some pretty difficult and oftentimes unpopular steps. And together they shored up the financial system to keep credit flowing. And with the Recovery Act, pumped life back into the economy in the form of tax cuts for working families, as well as infrastructure investments for roads, bridges, and other public works. Projects that had to be done sooner or later, and the longer you waited, the more expensive it would be. But by doing it now, we put millions of people back to work. And those folks who work on the roads and lay the asphalt and repair bridges, they shop in malls, eat in restaurants, support many other businesses within their community. Well, now that America has stepped away from the brink, we need a new strategy for sustained economic growth. As President Obama recently said, quote, "We need to build an economy where we borrow less and produce more. We need an economy where we generate more jobs here at home and send more products overseas. We need to invest and nurture the industries of the future, and we need to train our workers to compete for those jobs," end quote. President Obama and his administration believe a revitalized manufacturing sector is a key part of building this new economy. And today I want to tell you why we believe so strongly in the importance of American manufacturing and how we plan to help manufacturers in the end succeed. Let me begin with the why of what we're doing. It begins with the fact that manufacturing is a vital source of middle-class jobs. Consider the fact that manufacturing employees make 13% more than the average for all other workers. It's no coincidence that the struggles of the American middle class have coincided with the decimation of America's manufacturing base. Manufacturing is also a major contributor to American innovation, comprising 2/3 of our nation's R&D efforts. And as this country attempts to transition to a cleaner energy economy, it will depend on wind turbines, solar panels, advanced batteries, and electric cars designed and built in old-line manufacturing towns all across America. Obviously, U.S. manufacturers have been fighting an uphill struggle for quite some time. Manufacturing employment in the United States has been steadily declining since the 1950s. Once accounting for 1/3 of our jobs, manufacturing now claims only 1 in 10. Now, you can chalk up a lot of this to long-term structural trends like increased productivity, computerization, efficiency, competition from abroad, and of course the growth in knowledge and service-based sectors. But there's something else going on here. I think it's been an unfortunate line of thinking that's developed over the past few decades in America that figured that as long as we designed products and owned a piece of the intellectual property, it didn't really matter if someone else made it or if it was made in some other country. but now we're beginning to see the folly of that approach. I remember reading an article a few months ago showing that Chinese and Taiwanese computer makers that had previously just built the PCs designed by the likes of HP and Apple had now started to move into research and design and were grabbing market share from their former American partners. We shouldn't be surprised. Because when products are designed and manufactured side by side in America, businesses can discover new efficiencies and develop second, third, and fourth generation upgrades that simply would never occur in a cloistered research lab. But when that R&D and actual manufacturing are not located close by, we allow other countries to develop new businesses and new jobs that can only be created when a company is engaged in the entire chain of innovation, from the inception of the idea to its production and ultimately sale to the customer. For all these reasons, manufacturing must be a critical part of America's economic strategy. President Obama has already made a significant down payment to jumpstarting manufacturing, with over $100 billion worth of grants, tax cuts, and incentives in the Recovery Act devoted to manufacturing investments, especially in the clean energy sector. And to spur innovation in manufacturing throughout the American economy, the President's 2011 budget proposes large new investments in R&D while simultaneously making it easier for companies to write off their own R&D investments. The 2011 proposed budget submitted by the President includes $148 billion for federal research and development. And it calls for making the R&D tax credit permanent for the private sector. To keep manufacturing at the forefront of our economic policy making, the President has also appointed a senior counselor for manufacturing, Ron Bloom, who has announced a very ambitious strategic plan for helping the manufacturing sector. At Commerce, we're working every day to jumpstart manufacturing with programs to improve manufacturers' efficiency and sustainability, to help unlock the potential of promising new markets like clean energy, and to expand exports by increasing manufacturers' access to foreign markets all around the world. And we're seeing results. In fiscal year 2009, clients of our Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program reported more than $9 billion in new and retained sales, $1.4 billion in cost savings for the companies who benefited from the program, and the creation and the retention of nearly 53,000 jobs. So all of you who are here in the MEP program, our federal partners, our state partners, and of course those from the Commerce Department, congratulations for a terrific job that you do day in and day out on behalf of manufacturers all around our country. The MEP also has a Green Supplier Network program that has already reviewed more than 150 companies and found ways for them to cut some $72 million in costs by reducing water and energy use, air emissions, and solid waste. The return on the company's investment to implement these practices is estimated to be 130 to 1. What an incredible savings. And today we'd like to announce a new program that's going to help not only our manufacturers, but entrepreneurs all across America. It's called the I6 Challenge. This is a new $12 million innovation competition administered by the Department of Commerce in partnership with the National Institutes of Health and the National Science Foundation. Commerce will award up to $1 million each to 6 winning teams with the most innovative ideas to drive technology commercialization and entrepreneurship within their regions. And the National Institutes of Health and National Science Foundation will award a total of up to $6 million in additional funding to their small business innovation research grantees that partner with these winning teams. And so I would encourage anyone who can to participate. And to our MEP professionals here, I urge you to work with some of your clients and the companies that you've worked with to apply for these grants. And the deadline for entries is July 15th of this year. This I-6 challenge will be on the agenda also for our new Assistant Secretary for Manufacturing and Services, Nicole Lamb-Hale, who's planning a nationwide tour to discuss and listen to ideas on how the administration and we at the Department of Commerce can help manufacturers even more. As we take steps to invest in manufacturing at home, the administration is also working to ensure companies thrive and become profitable by helping them sell their goods and services to the 95% of the consumers who live outside the borders of the United States. We need our manufacturers to thrive, but we need to also expand their markets and realize that 95% of the world's consumers live outside the borders of the United States. So for manufacturers to succeed, they need to think of selling goods and services all around the world. Because the more you sell, the more you produce. The more you produce, the more revenue you generate, the more profitable and successful and competitive you are, and ultimately you'll hire more people. And that's what this is all about, putting America back to work. President Obama's National Export Initiative aims to double America's exports over the next 5 years, supporting some 2 million new jobs in the process. Now, prior to the National Export Initiative, export promotion may have been a some-of-the-time focus of U.S. cabinet agencies and federal departments. Under the National Export Initiative, we make it an all-of-the-time focus. And to implement this strategy, we're pursuing a three-pronged approach. First, we're going to improve access to credit, especially for small and medium-sized companies that are exporting. Second, we're going to redouble our efforts to ensure that American companies have free and open access to foreign markets. And finally, there's going to be a more robust effort by the administration to expand trade advocacy in all its forms. The President's 2011 budget includes additional resources for the Department of Commerce to actually hire several hundred more foreign trade specialists located all around the world whose sole mission will be to find buyers and customers for U.S. companies, to find buyers and companies for those products and services made here in America. And later this month, I'll be leading the largest trade mission of my tenure at Commerce Department when we take clean energy companies from America to explore new opportunities in China and in Indonesia. And in conjunction with this MEP conference, we've organized a 2-day Euro Trade Forum. Because we have commercial service specialists here from some 28 European countries, and they're all eager to work with you to find new overseas markets. For the companies that are represented here, we want to help you sell your products and services abroad. And to the MEP professionals here, we want to acquaint you with the opportunities abroad for your clients and the companies that you work with in your home states. American goods are so highly desired all around the world, and we simply need to do a better job of matching that desire and that want from countries in Europe to the American companies that sell those great products. I know from having led the Commerce Department over the last year that our commercial service officers can be of real value, can be a real value add. And so to the companies that are here, I encourage you to take advantage of their expertise as well as the entire services that the MEP program offers you. And to the MEP professionals, learn of the opportunities. Talk to the folks from the International Trade Administration, our foreign commercial service officers who have come from Europe. Learn from them of the opportunities for your clients. Help your clients export to around the world. You know, less than 1% of U.S. companies are engaged in export, but of the U.S. companies that do export, 58% export to only one country. 58% of all U.S. companies that export to only one country. So if we can help those companies that export to Canada, export to Mexico, if we can help those companies that export to the UK, export to the rest of Eastern Europe, or if the companies that export to Europe, if we can help them export to Asia, just one additional country, we will substantially increase the goods that we sell. And again, the more we sell, the more we make, the more we make, the more revenues for the companies, and ultimately more employment for the people of America. In this unbelievably competitive global economy, manufacturers need to do everything they can to be more efficient, more productive, and to find new markets. And we at the Commerce Department, the folks at MEP and International Trade Administration, stand ready to help those manufacturers any way we can. This is a team effort. These are tough times in America, and this partnership is needed more than ever before. Thank you very much, and keep up the great work.